Welcome to the Bill Levinson Experience, a motivational podcast relating to the insurance brokerage industry and business in general. And now, here's Bill Levinson.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Here we are again, episode 58 with the Bill Levinson Experience podcast. Very exciting times for us here at Levinson and Associates, right? Summertime 2025. Lots of updates, lots of changes, lots of things going on in this country, around the world globally. Also, lots of things going on for you, for the carriers, right? For everyone around us, and you need to be in the loop as far as sales ideas, strategies, product knowledge, right? Anything to move the needle when it comes to you and your business. And that's what this episode and entire podcast is about at the end of the day. So great stuff to come. Just please make any notes, pick up the phone after you're done listening to this. Call us, okay? If you're on the treadmill on level 10, wait until you're done, and then obviously shoot us an email or pick up the phone and we'll answer any questions and get you up and running. So today's episode 58 is special, and I know I say this a lot, but today is really special. Why? Because we have an awesome guest speaker. Miss Carlan Snipes is joining us. So she is our VP with Pacific Life Insurance Company. And the reason, I'm just going to toot your horn for a second, Carlan, and then I'm going to introduce you, and if you can say a few words. But I do want to say before you jump in is the reason why this is special, and she's very unique. Think about this. We have over 90 carriers that we work with directly, okay, as an IMO. And when you think about an insurance carrier vice president, okay, regional VP, call it whatever you want, right? Yes, they're all great. They all come and visit. They all try to go to bat and help us, okay? But I got to say, and I mean this, and I said it at our expo, and I've said it on prior webinars we've done with Carlan, there is no one that steps in, okay, and does what she says she's going to do. And it doesn't matter if it's Monday morning at 9 a.m. or literally Friday night at 9 p.m., or I've even seen emails on Sunday afternoons. So she's always there for us. And by the way, it's not just one of these roles where she looks at it like, hey, I might be with Pac Life, in 25, and then, hey, who knows where I'll wind up in 26 and 27, but I'll give you a call and let you know. No. Think about this for a second. She was with GE Financial 22 years and then Pacific Life for 8 years. So think about that. 2 stops in 30 years. That is unheard of in today's time. So again, I had to just toot your horn for a second, Carlan, because that's just so uncommon. And number one, I want to thank you. And number two, I'm delighted to have you as a guest speaker on our podcast today. So if you want to just say hello to everyone, say a few words, and then we'll jump in.
I appreciate it, Bill. Thank you very much. I really enjoy working with you and your advisors. You're one of my top customers. And I say that, just like you said, it's the God honest truth. I love working with you guys. It's a pleasure. And we are doing the best things that we can for our customers. And that includes the proposed insurers that we're working with, because we want to make sure they get that coverage to make sure they're covered in a life event that they desperately need that money for. So we're doing the good work.
Oh, well, we appreciate that always, and thanks for saying those words. So we have thousands and thousands of agents, advisors. We have CPAs, estate planning attorneys all over the U.S. In fact, we even have listeners outside of the U.S. now. So I want to make sure that we bring a ton of value to everyone that's listening, and please share this episode too. If you know anyone that would benefit by today's broadcast, podcast, call it whatever you want. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you're listening on any of the podcast channels, just yes, please share. And also please leave a few words, comments, reviews. We love to hear from you all. Okay, so let's jump in. Carlan, let's just start off. We'll take everyone back for a second. Tell us about the early days. I know we're close in age. We've been in this industry about the same time, but take us back day one and how you wound up in this crazy industry of ours.
I love that question. And I actually ask that question a lot when I meet new folks because it's fascinating to me how we all get into this industry. I grew up in Lynchburg, Virginia, and my goal, you sit down with your guidance counselor in high school was to be a mechanical engineer. And the reason for that goal is if you're not familiar with Lynchburg, I'll give you a little, there's only three good employers in Lynchburg at the time, and it was a naval nuclear facility that my dad worked for. So I wanted to go and do what my dad was doing. So that was my goal. And so I went to college to be a mechanical engineer. And the funny thing was, I don't know a lot of people when I ask this question, hey, what did you go to college to be? That they say, hey, I wanted to be a life insurance advisor. You don't typically hear that unless they're lucky enough to have a family in the business like you are. You were able to have that goal. Maybe you didn't want to do it, but you had that in front of you so you could see how important it was. So a lot of people don't have that opportunity. So when I went to school, I was going to be a mechanical engineer. Long story short, I graduate, come back home and decide this is not really what I wanted to do. And I mentioned there was three really good employers at the time. One of them was the nuclear facility. Then we also had Liberty University was up and growing at the time. They started in 1971. They were up and growing at the time. And then the third one was First Colony Life Insurance Company. And so I decided I was going to go after the First Colony Life Insurance Company because they had really good benefits. So every week for a year, I called their HR department because back then it wasn't online. You had to actually pick up the phone and talk to folks, right? So I would call them weekly for a year. And they finally decided, hey, we have got to give this girl an interview. She is driving us crazy. And the reason they weren't interested is they knew I had a college degree, had nothing to do with life insurance. I think, why in the world would this woman want to do this job? Because it's going to be entry level. So I started in that company in 1994 as a customer service rep. And that's how I got into the life insurance business. And I've loved it ever since. It was fascinating. The one thing I will recommend to anybody trying to get into life insurance, go do an internship at a carrier and work in customer service. You will learn the ins and the outs of every product they have, all the aspects. It's absolutely fascinating. But it's been a wonderful, wonderful career. And I love it till today. Had no idea this is where I was going to be, but I'm so glad that this is where I got.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And what's crazy is that you're exactly right. No one, I feel like, that's successful and made it in this industry, like obviously we have, they didn't say, oh, I want to be a life insurance agent one day, or I want to work at an insurance carrier, or I want to be an IMO. It's like you kind of wind up here by accident, and then you're like, wait a minute, you know what? I love what I do. And you can actually make some good money at the same time and help these families. It's a win-win. So
Without a doubt.
I don't know. Yeah, I just love that. And what's so amazing to me, excuse me, is when you think about, what the options are, right? You start in the industry, you learn from the ground up as on the admin side as a case manager. And what's interesting to me is there's no limit to like how far you can take your career path or how far you can take the company. It's starting off in one area, and then it's getting strategic. It's getting scrappy is what I like to call it, and saying, hey, we should try this idea. We should use this marketing strategy, or we should develop a product like this. And then that takes off, and literally the sky's the limit. And there's no cap. And I remember my dad's good friend saying that to me. He's like, this will be the biggest nightmare or the best kept secret in your life, this industry. And Exactly. It turned out to be the best kept secret. Yeah, and here we are today.
Well, I think a lot of people, yeah, and they underappreciate it. Some people that don't know about it, we are a small group, I think, for overall, but they don't know about it. They think of you more like, oh, used car salesman type of thing. And I'm like, that's not what we do at all. We are helping people to make sure they're protecting their families and their future. When I started at First Colony and as a customer service rep, I never in a million years believed I would get to the position that I'm in. And I was only limited by myself. So I was not going to limit myself. I was going to continue to grow and grow and grow. And I never forget the conversation I had with my dad when I got into this job. He's like, he was so disappointed because I was the first person in my immediate family that had a college degree. He's like, I can't believe you're doing a job that has nothing to do with your degree. And the interesting thing is, as you go along, if you know First Colony, we were purchased by GE Capital 2 years after I started there. And the only way you would get a promotion with GE is if you had a college degree, because that college degree proved that you were committed to something, that you could do something, see something through from the beginning to the end. So I never imagined when I started in that role where it would take me. And again, I can't limit myself. You're the only one that can limit yourself.
Right. That's right. It's so true. And obviously, Carlin's on the corporate side, and we're on the IMO side, the independent brokerage side. But it really doesn't make a difference. I mean, look how far she has come, right? And look how far we have come. When we started, when I started in the industry, we had a couple hundred agents. Today, over 24,000 in every city in the U.S. So again, on both sides, the sky is the limit. And you're right, Carlin. I remember, when I was growing up, I would look at these life insurance agents, and like my dad actually, with the short sleeve dress shirts, and the dress ties that stopped at their belly button. And I was like, this is not the cool, career path that I want to go in. But again, like we just said, you learn the basics and then you're like, wait a minute, you know what? I could figure this out. I could see myself doing this. And then you're off to the races. So I love to hear it, love to see it. And then again, when you look at, especially on your side, on the more corporate side, you look at the turnover rate, right? And and I feel like it's even happening more and more today. So you build a relationship, with a VP or an internal, and then it's a year later, you're getting another email saying, "Oh, sorry, Jimmy Smith is now from this company A to now company B." And it's like, oh, shucks, we had such a great relationship. And you did exactly the opposite, right? You have stuck around. It feels like forever. I remember meeting you in the first Colony days. I remember the brick building in Lynchburg. They took I think they're still there today, right? In that brick building.
Well, they just sold it, but Pacific Life had it up until I think last year they sold it. With COVID, it had an impact on people coming in the hybrid workplace and everything. But yeah, that building has been within life insurance for it was 50 years when I started there. So and they expanded it. It's a beautiful building still to this day. But yeah, no, that's a wonderful. We used to have twice a year we would bring in our customers. So one like it was spring and the fall. So the spring I think would typically be the principals, and the fall we would do one with the case manager. So very different focus of each meeting, but it really built the business because the relationships, we're in a relationship business, and developing those relationships in person is essential to growing your business. And that's what First Colony did an excellent job of, was really deepening those relationships with their customers.
Yeah, no, and look, I remember from 25 plus years ago that I was at that brick building. So I guess it works pretty well because we're talking about it today. So I love it. I love it. And my main point was just how you have stuck through it. I'm sure great times, bad times. We had some challenging times in this country. The tech boom. We had the real estate issues. We had lots and lots of ups and downs, turmoil, and you're still there. And you have stuck through it all, and you still have been there for us, and will always be there for us, I'm sure. So I just love your story and love what you bring to the table. You're a very special person. In fact, I also want to say, if you're an agent of ours, you've been at the expo, you've been on our webinars, I'm sure you already met Carlin either in person or through some of the podcasts or webinar trainings or expos, all the above, right? Who knows? But she's always been there from day one. Okay, let's shift gears for a second. So let's talk a little bit more about the industry today, Carlin. And I know you're on a different side than we are, but what are you hearing currently, and maybe what's going on for the future, and any suggestions and advice for maybe the younger agents or even the veteran agents? Anything you can share with the audience?
Well, I think what I'm seeing, being in this industry for 31 years, obviously change happens, but you're seeing rapid increase in digital transformation. Automation and AI are really driving things. Insureds are increasingly adopting AI, machine learning to automate underwriting, claims processing, and customer service. The goal here is to reduce costs, enhance that customer experience, and then shorten that processing time. With the biggest impact I really think the biggest impact is going to be on underwriting as this keeps growing, with the more focus on straight through processing and instant decision. I'm seeing BGAs like Levinson utilizing digital platforms to access new verticals with their customers, growing these digital platforms, accessing new markets and advisors that they normally maybe wouldn't have access. In the past, we wouldn't have had access. Also, data-driven personalization. Insureds are using big data analytics to offer more personalized policies on an individual basis. which can drive customer retention and cross-selling opportunities. And one thing I'll point out, and I hear this a lot when we talk about big data, a lot of carriers out there are using big data. It could be credit history, it could be LexisNexis, things to make underwriting decisions. Those two things are not things that we use. We're looking for a holistic approach to a client to get that information, to develop a story about their health, to make that decision. Another trend I've been seeing is really a focus on health and wellness. Life insurance companies are incorporating data to offer dynamic pricing, and they're rewarding those healthy behaviors, promoting more active lifestyles among their policyholders, encouraging them to make the right choices. One of the things at Pacific Life that we do, we have a program called Pacific Life Healthy Rewards. And it's an excellent example of what we're doing here. What we're looking at when the client applies for a policy with us, when we get that medical information or we get that lab and the exams, we get the underwriting, the interview from the client, we're looking at what is this client doing to improve their life. A perfect example would be someone today, let's say you're working with a client who's a type 2 diabetic. In the past, the best offer you would get on a type 2 diabetic would be standard. What we're doing, what our underwriters are doing, are going to look at that client to say, okay, hey, what's Mr. Client doing? Are they well controlled? Are they taking their medications as directed? In essence, are they doing all the right things to live a healthy lifestyle? Aside from, traditional medical care, are they exercising? Are they eating right? Are they seeing their doctors, going to their dentist, doing anything that adds to their overall well-being? And like I said, historically in the past, this person would never get better than a standard. But by us looking at the client holistically from an underwriting standpoint, we're able to take someone that was a standard offer and potentially improve them all the way up 3 rate classes to super preferred. On a consistent basis right now, I'm seeing standard offers that used to be standard offers on type 2 diabetics to be preferred with us today. And overall, I will say with these healthy reward program that we're instituted, 8% of clients that would have been standard in the past with us are now preferred or super preferred. And that might not seem like a huge number, but you have to consider the volume that we do as a carrier. 8% is a big, big increase there. And it's very good. It's a positive thing. So insureds are more focused on preventative health measures. They want to reduce claims, obviously. They're offering wellness programs and they're giving incentives for this healthy behavior. Another example you think about other carriers I've seen is Grail. They're getting the clients to go out there and participate in Grail, which looks for 50 different types of cancer. And I've heard tremendous stories around Grail, the success of Grail. Another thing that I've seen happen is as product innovation and there's flexibility. There's a rising demand for life insurance products that combine elements of life insurance and living benefits like long-term care or critical illness. Customers are increasingly seeking products that are easy to understand and buy. They're looking for these simplified underwriting processes. It's very attractive, particularly to the younger consumers that are out there and our underserved population. I'm also seeing a rise in consumer awareness. With the pandemic, it increased awareness about the importance of financial planning, and this led to increased demand for life insurance, especially, again, from the younger generations and first-time buyers. Millennials and Gen Z take on greater financial responsibility. You'll see life insurance adapting products to meet their preferences, to be more digital savvy generations, right? They want to make sure they're doing the right thing. And another thing, you're going to see this demographic shift. As the global population ages, there's an increasing demand for retirement planning, wealth transfer solutions. And obviously, we need to solve for that long-term care need. This all drives the growth. With the middle class mass market, as it continues to grow, they continue to be vastly underserved, but it's getting bigger, right? So more insurers, especially the larger ones, will start to focus more on Main Street America with straightforward product solutions that can be priced competitively and also be profitable. And lastly, the last thing I want to make sure we think about is we need to acknowledge the role that private equity is playing in our business today. Over the next several years, it's really shaping the distribution of our products, how the products are developed and priced, and how carriers engage with their policy owners. These trends are driving total transformation, I think, in the life insurance industry, and they're fostering innovation that might not have been there in the past, operational efficiency, as well as growth opportunities for insurers and distributors. I know that was a lot, but those are things I'm seeing happen.
That was great info, and you're spot on. And I want to just back up for a second. If you're an agent listening right now in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, in your 3rd bedroom, right, and you're targeting Middle America, what does this all mean to you? And what is the takeaway? And so think about this for a second. Number one, the underwriting notes that Carlan mentioned, it's so important, right? Because especially post-COVID, a lot of these carriers changed their underwriting platforms. And things did get better, right? As far as paper apps to e-apps and drop tickets and making things faster and smoother. But what she mentioned with the risk score and LexisNexis, for example, what happens is they're taking these consumers and putting them into a bucket, and then based on that total risk score, which can also include their credit history, okay, they could be declined, or even a table rated case or a standard, where if the carrier and underwriting team looked at the big picture holistically, they could get underwriting credits that maybe turn the case into a preferred. So you have to think about these things, right? Especially what you mentioned with those healthy rewards and those various programs, because maybe, a decline case now could be a standard if the carrier is looking outside of the big picture. So that's important. Yeah,
I was
tell
going to
me.
say, Bill, the other thing along with the LexisNexis and the credit score, sometimes they'll come back to you, the carriers will come back with the offer and they can't tell you why the offer is what it is. Obviously, it's other than applied for, but they're not going to even be able to give you the information you need to shop that case, which really is really frustrating
Exactly.
for the advisors as well as the clients.
Because, yep, it's just like a prospect is a number and they fit into a certain criteria based on score. And that's all they know. So you're exactly right. Yep. So you got to think about these things, right? I'm not saying, listen, Pacific Life, A+ rated, excellent company, branding, customer service, of course. And I'm not saying, put all your eggs in one basket, use them for every single consumer. No, we all know on the average agents use 3 to 5 carriers, but they should definitely be one of the carriers in your toolbox, period. And we'll talk. And by the way, I don't want this all to be about, Pac Life and their great products. Yes, they do have great products, and I definitely want to mention it like we are. And we're also going to give you some sales ideas, strategies that just have to do with the industry overall. So we have some really, really cool stuff to come. But I want to mention this while we're on this topic. When the agent hat is on, right, you're sitting out there and you're saying, Bill, what could I learn from today? It's the underwriting platform, right? It's how are things changing, moving forward. It's living benefits are huge right now, right? You have to know enough to be dangerous because, the new type of life insurance, right, that pays while you're alive. Know the basics, right? Know what Pac Life has to offer with their riders, okay? With their GUL, their return of premium rider is built in. It's incredible. So we'll talk about that more. But what I just want you to take away, number one, is you got to think about this stuff when you're out quoting. Maybe you're using a spreadsheet quote engine, like what's on our website. We show all of our carriers, all of our products, but just think a little bit outside the box. How am I going to get a carrier to look at this client from A to Z where we're going to give them the best shot as far as premium in a health class? So think about that. And then think about target marketing. If you're targeting middle America, in the younger generation, you have to meet them where they want to be met, right? And if it's on Zoom like this, great. If it's face to face, that's fine too, right? If it's through a smartphone or iPad, whatever it takes, you have to be, and I always say you have to pivot and meet them where they want to be met. We do the same for our agents, and it seems like Carlan and her team do the same thing for the agencies. So it's a win-win. All right. So before I move on, Carlan, to some personal stuff here, which everybody wants to hear, anything else you want to mention about the industry today and anything about Pac Life and some maybe recent changes before we go on to the next thing?
Well, the thing that I think is really important it continues to see every year I see this with the stats, the underserved group, the uninsured. If you look at our country, it's 12 trillion plus people that do not have life insurance. If you divide the country in half, basically, 50% of the country does not have life insurance. So there are huge opportunities. And the ones that do have life insurance, typically what they have is employer-owned life insurance. And they do not realize, a lot of these folks do not realize that when they leave that job, that life insurance is not guaranteed to be portable to them. It might just end when they end that job. So they might think today, oh, I'm comfortably protecting my family, when in fact, when they retire, that insurance is gone and they're no longer insurable. So they can't get more insurance if they need it at that point in time. And the other thing I'll say with that is a lot of consumers overestimate dramatically the cost of life insurance. They do not realize how inexpensive it really is. The price of one streaming service or less to insure yourself to protect that family. So if something will happen to you as the breadwinner, that your family is protected. They can stay in their home. They don't have to move out. But if maybe one of your spouses does not work, that spouse doesn't have to go get a job, or you're covering your children's future college. They just do not realize how inexpensively they can do that to have peace of mind. And that is consistently going up and up and up. It's not going down. I have never seen that number go down where we have more and more people insured. It just continues to be a larger gap of uninsureds or grossly underinsured people.
Yep. And that means it's your job to get the word out, right? And I also want to mention this too. Pack Life and Carlan's team put together this complete turnkey social media campaign that you can plug right into and through LinkedIn and co-brand a bunch of great social media marketing material, e-blasts, all the above. So you can once you're set up and active, you can leverage all of this material to spread the word, get that message out that Carlan was just speaking of. So anyway, you got to, again, just know enough to be dangerous and know what's available to you, especially at no cost. All right, let's keep moving here. Let's talk about just for a second. And, we have a lot of younger audience that listen in every month. We have middle-aged agents. We have the veteran agents, right, all across the board. But I think we can all learn a little something from you, right? And what you bring to the table, right? Because you've proven the concept. But when you look at yourself today, Carlan, and you say, you know what can I have done maybe 20 years ago, right? Where I would be maybe more successful or in a different place. Who knows? Anything that you can share with the audience that maybe we can have a good takeaway from?
Definitely. I think it's funny as we evolve as individuals, sometimes we forget what changes we've made over time and how much those changes impacted our lives. The number one thing I would say to my younger self is don't be tentative about what you want. Don't be afraid to be bold. Ask for what you want. Ask for the business. Ask for the promotion. Ask for that increase in pay that you deserve. What's the worst thing that could happen? Someone says no. I look back on my life and I'm like, I could have done this differently. Had I done this, I would have accelerated faster than I did. So that's the number one thing I would say. Don't be afraid. Be bold.
I love it. I love it. And as one of the top VPs in this industry and in the country, right, you have proven exactly that. You went up the ladder, up the chain, call it whatever you want, and you've stayed there and even grown more to this point. What, 30 years, right? Is that how long you've been in the
31
industry
years.
now?
It'd be 31 years in August this year.
31. It's incredible. It really is incredible. Kudos to you. But I think we can all learn something. Be bold, right? Go in for the ask. You have nothing to lose. And that's really with anything in life.
Absolutely.
So I love that. I love that, Carlan. I love it. And it's not just words, because obviously you put in the action plan and look at you today. So there you have it. All right. So it's true. So this is a good one for everyone. But and it doesn't matter who you are and what level you're at, right? And your age doesn't make a difference. We all have challenges, and I'm just curious to know this for myself too, selfishly, what motivates you, mentally, physically, right? To get up every day, to put on that game face and do the best you can, even when things are a little tough. Anything? Is it books? Is it yoga? Anything?
It's my family. I was raised to be a very self-reliant individual. I believe if you put in the work, you're going to succeed at anything that you want to do. And I've faced failures just like everyone else. When I worked at GE Capital, one of my positions was moved to Richmond, and basically I had no job if I didn't move. And it really wasn't good for me to move at that time. So I worked in the company to find another position, which I did. And then another time when I was at Genworth, the company downsized. And I had to actually compete against my coworkers for the limited positions that were available. This was right after, the financial crisis, 2008. They downsized our team. We had, I think we had about 20 people on our team to 5 people. So then you had to go in and interview and compete against your coworkers whom you've known for a very, very long time. You want them to win as well, but obviously you're in it for yourself. You got to make sure you have a position to take care of your family. And another time this happened, lastly, my job was eliminated when I was at Genworth. Genworth stopped selling life and annuities injuries in 2016. Each of these things that happened, every time I was able to rebound and reinvent myself and actually end up in a better place than where I started. I think these challenges are what made me into the salesperson that I am today, because I learned every single time I was knocked down, I pulled myself back up and said, okay, this is okay. I can do better. I can do better. This was meant to be. This is the way I look at these things. They're meant to be. Maybe it's uncomfortable, but it makes us change and it makes us grow.
Oh, I love that. Love that. Very, very strong. And your attitude is awesome. Okay, number one. And I also got to say, and I mentioned it earlier, but I've known Carlan literally since I started in this industry, and you show up every single presentation, expo, webinar, and you're in the same mindset. It doesn't matter if it was 20 years ago, 10 years ago, if it was Genworth, if it was Packlight, doesn't matter. And I got to give you think about this, everyone. We have these expos, right? Every year, 200, 300, 400 agents in the audience, right? We have maybe 11 carriers, and, most of these VPs, right? They're men, coming up in 3-piece suits and this and that. Carlan comes up, right, as one of the top women executives and VPs in the industry, like she owns the stage. And the agents love, everybody's eyes are peeled. When you're done, they all say, oh, can you give me your contact info? Or, hey, I want to get appointed. And you leave such an impact on the audience, and you own the room. It's just so great to see. So again, the proof is in the pudding. And that's another reason why I wanted to have you on today. And even if someone's listening and they're not even in the industry, it's okay. It doesn't make a difference. You can pick up some of these nuggets and use this in your life too, right? And she has literally paved the way for a lot of people in and out of this industry. So again,
Well, it's funny that you said that,
for,
Bill, because one of the
yeah.
positions I was after when they eliminated our positions and stuff, one of the things the manager who hired me as I was competing against a coworker, as I mentioned, and he said that the main thing about you, Carlan, I've known you for 6 months, you have the most positive attitude, and a positive attitude can take you really far. Because when it happened, I mean, I could have cried and said, oh, I've lost my job. Even after they laid us all off, quote, laid us all off, and we had to reapply, he popped his head in and he said, how are you doing? I said, it'll be fine. I told him, I said, it'll be fine. Things will work out. It'll be fine. And I think that had more impact on him than my actual interview did, to tell you the truth, because I wasn't, down in the dumps about it.
That's exactly right. And it sounds cliche, oh, you got to be Mr. or Mrs. Positive all the time. And I'm telling you, it works. And I wouldn't be here if it didn't work. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure same for you. So and your story just proved it. So no, I love that. And I picked up on that right in the early days, day one. I felt it. And here we are, 25 years later. So, all right, now let's switch gears now. And this is my favorite part of this episode. So when you think about you're an agent out there, again, you're in the trenches, right? You're making it happen day in and day out. At least you're trying to make it happen, right? Whatever it is. And you're talking about and thinking about maximizing minutes, right? You're maybe looking at your bucket of prospects and insureds, right? And how can I maximize my time? How can I, and there's this Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, right? How can I focus more of my attention on one side or the other? I love the way Carlan dives into this. She did it at the expo. Everyone loved it. And I want to now jump into this. So put your thinking hat on, everyone. And I want Carlan to take the wheel here.
Thanks. So with Pareto's principle, I'll start off with who Pareto was. I think it's interesting to the story here. Pareto was an Italian economist that lived in the 1800s or so, and he was doing a study on land ownership in Italy. And what his study came out with was the results were 80% of the land was owned by 20% of the population. Well, this piqued his interest. He said, okay, does this rule hold true? And he started looking at other things. And he actually had an herb garden. So he was looking at his vegetation and he found that 80% of the growth or the fruit, the vegetables, whatever it was, 80% of it came from 20% of his plants. And this holds true for everything. If you go into your closet at home and you look in your closet and you look at your wardrobe, maybe you have business suits, maybe you have ties, shoes, whatever you're looking at, 80% of the time, you're only wearing 20% of that wardrobe. You're going to the same thing over and over and over again. This holds true for animals as well. If you watch your dog, 80% of the time, he or she will play with the same toy that 20% of his toys. They won't pay with 20% of the toys, they're going to pay with 80% of the time. So this is like what I call a golden rule. And it's very important. If you've never done this, I highly recommend you do this. Run an 80-20 on your business. This is going to enable you to know where 80% of your production's coming from. Who are those 20% of the clients that are generating 80% of your production? Why is that important? You want to be spending as much of your time with those 20% of your clients as possible because they're going to continue to grow your business. The other thing I say about this, once you've identified those 20%, get to know them, really, really get in with them, go deep with them, know their family, know their children. Because guess what? If something happens to that spouse, you need to have the relationship with the remaining spouse to make sure they keep the business with you. Or if something happens to both the parents, you need to have the relationship with the beneficiaries to make sure it stays with you. The other thing I think the 80-20 does for you, it can help you identify those customers that are not generating a lot of revenue for your business, but are using up a lot of your time. So your time is precious and it's valuable. So make sure you're spending the time with the right customers, your best customers. And I ask this question all the time. I'll say, hey, can you write down your top 10 customers? And I've seen it happen over and over again where people can write down their top 5 customers right off the bat, lickety split. They know who the top 5 are. And then they think about 6, 7, or 8. Takes them a minute, but they might get something on the paper. 9 and 10, they have no idea who those folks are. So if you've never run an 80-20 year business, run it. Find out who your top customers are and get in deep with those customers.
I love that. When I first heard you speak about this, I was thinking about it, and it's the same thing for us as an IMO. It really, it's for everything and everyone in business. It's 80-20. And then try to focus most of your time with that 20% piece and make that 30 to 40%, right? And then we all know what the outcome is. So I think we can all relate, and you should all write this down, because if you don't know, you need to know. And this will change your business moving forward. I promise you. So I love that. Love that. All right. So any other sales ideas, strategies, anything for the agents that we can share?
Yes, definitely. I found that the 3 things successful producers have, one is they have a business plan, right? What are they doing? What are they going to do? What's their business plan? 2, they have a marketing plan. The marketing plan is just, hey, how am I going to accomplish my business plan? What am I going to do to make sure I succeed? And lastly, they have a revenue goal. How much am I going to make? What's my goal? What am I trying to do? And when you're developing your business plan, your marketing plan, your revenue goal, some of the things you need to think about is make sure that you apply SMART to that. And what I mean by that, when you're developing goals for yourself personally or for your business, make sure they're SMART. And what I mean is specific. You need to make sure it's a specific goal. You need to make sure it's measurable, something you can measure to make sure, hey, am I actually winning at this? Attainable. Make sure it's attainable. Because one of the things that we'll talk about in some of our practice management presentations, maybe you have a revenue goal out there, but maybe it's unrealistic. Maybe it's so far of a leap, you'll never get there. You want to make sure when you're making a goal for yourself, it's something that you can actually achieve. Relevant. Is it relevant when you're making a goal for your business? Is it relevant to it? And timely. It needs to have a beginning or end. When you talk about measurable, you need to say, okay, I've got this goal, but if you don't put an end to when I'm going to get there, that goal goes on and on and on to perpetuity, basically. You're never going to get there. The thing I also say when you're doing these things, share your goals with other people. They will hold you accountable to doing what you say you're going to do. And you think about it this way, you see a person go into a weight loss program by themselves versus a person that goes in with a friend. Who typically is more successful at that weight loss? It's the one that's going into this program with a friend because they have someone that's holding them accountable. So make sure you have people holding you accountable to your goals. The other thing I'll say that can help you dramatically is time management. And I always think about this when you think about time management. Start off with thinking, okay, what is an hour of my time worth today? Do I know what an hour of my time is worth? Because once you know that, you're going to make sure you're not wasting that time. I find that most financial professionals do not know what an hour of their time is worth. And I think that's we need to make sure we know what an hour of our time is worth. Because you think about it this way. If you have a leak at your house, you call the plumber. Can the plumber tell you right off the top of his head what an hour of his time is worth? What if you call a lawyer, you need to get a will drawn up? Does he know what an hour of a time is worth? Yes, they all know right off the top of their head what an hour of their time is worth. You should know what an hour of your time is worth because what you do is just as important as what that lawyer's doing. It's extremely important. And you want to make sure that you're spending your time on the right things. You just take time to do that. And you can just a simple calculation, take about the hours you work today, divide it by your what you're earning. You're going to find out what an hour of your time is worth. And it may be surprising. And maybe you want to set a goal for yourself. Maybe it's lower than you thought it would be, or maybe it's higher. But if it's lower, maybe you want to increase that revenue. So you need to think about things that you can do to increase that revenue. Or maybe you want to work less. You can think about things that can do that saves time in your business to increase the number of hours you work. So there's different things that you can do. You need to determine what activities generate revenue for your business and delegate everything else. This was astonishing to me. I saw this stat somewhere. Financial professionals that spend 60% or more of their time with clients generate 8 times the revenue of their counterparts that spend less than 30% of their time with clients. So a revenue generating activity for you as a salesperson in the life insurance business is getting in front of clients, spending time with your existing clients, prospects, generating that revenue by spending time. And the more time that you can spend with them, especially your best clients, the more revenue you can generate.
Yep. And that goes full circle back to the 80-20 rule, is focusing most of your time on that 20% piece to build it out. I love that.
Because when you're doing that, you're actually freeing up time in your day, because you might be spending time on a client. Maybe that's, I always like to do A, B, C, D clients, and you're spending a lot of time with a D client. One of my best examples is, and if you've ever done this, you'll know what I'm talking about, especially coming from my background. If you've ever tried to sell a life insurance policy to an engineer, you spend a tremendous amount of time with this individual, and you might not even place the sale. So you spent all this time with this individual. So they're going to be someone that's very time intensive and demanding. But now the reverse of that, you can be working with a business, very demanding to come out with that, but you're probably going to sell multiple products with that business. So it's worth your time to spend it there. So just make sure, back to that point, you're spending the time with the people that are going to generate the most revenue for your business.
Yeah, no, I love that. Love that. And take away any distractions too. I mean, the cell phone could be a killer. The emails coming in, these solicitation emails, maybe if you're half interested, if you're into, golfing or boating, and they come out with a new club or a new boat or whatever, you got to keep all that stuff separate, because Carlan, you're exactly right. It's, every minute counts. And I feel like some of those distractions can take you, not only it's the time part, but it's the focus part away from what you were trying to accomplish, with that business owner or client. So you got to think about these things, write them down, and then literally take them out of your life, right, until 5 p.m. or whatever time you work.
Well, Bill, to your point, social media is a great, it can greatly grow your business, but you can spend a lot of time on that and you lose business because of that. So find a way to make sure, set a goal around how much time you're spending on it. It's important to your business, but make sure it doesn't become a time suck to your business.
Exactly. And I think, what would open your eyes to everyone listening, when you get that, it's a report that I know comes on the iPhone. I'm sure Android has something too, but weekly I'll get this report and it will tell me how much time I was on my phone, how much time you're on Instagram or Facebook or, searching for things. And that's a great eye opener and a good way to say, you know what, Bill, I got to put this to the side from 9 to 12. And then again, 1 to 6 or whatever, because it's going to help you. It'll help you maximize minutes. And then maybe when you're utilizing social media, using it for the right reasons by, DMing business owners or, sharing an article or a new post or flyer or one of these Pack Life new flyers they just came out with. So whatever it is, but just think about every minute counts, I think is what it all comes down to. All right. So let's switch gears again one more time here. Everybody loves a good success story, right? Business, personal, whatever. And I know Carlan has a few, but do you want to handpick one and share it with the audience?
Yes, definitely. So I'll give you an example. I was out at a similar meeting to the expo, Bill's Expo, and I was given a practice management presentation on the importance of having a vision statement for your business. I shared that having the vision statement is not enough. You need to look at it statement daily, hold yourself accountable to that statement, as I mentioned before. What was interesting to me was at the end of that presentation, one of the attendees walked up to me and he pulled out this crumpled piece of paper from his pocket. He said, he was Carlan, I attended a similar workshop about a year ago. After that, he said, I wrote down my vision statement. I started carrying it around with me. I look at it daily, pull it out of my pocket, look at it daily, make sure what I'm doing is going to get me to that vision. And within a year, I've increased my revenue by 20% by doing that one thing. That one thing. He held himself accountable to doing what he said he was going to do with his vision statement. And it generated the revenue, that 20% increase in his business. On a similar note, I was attending an event, a very similar event. I presented on client management. And on that particular topic, I was talking about the importance of spending your time and your money on your top customers. And there was a principal there in attendance. He walked up to me, he had an agency, and he said, you have saved me a tremendous amount of money. And I asked him, okay, why? He said, because I have been hosting this client appreciation event every year for my entire book of business. And I have not been taking that event and focusing on my top customers where I need to be focusing. So instead of spending all that money for my entire book of business, I'm going to do this event for my top 10 customers. And I'm going to ask them to bring a friend. Because who do our friends look like? They look like us. So he was thrilled to know he's been saved some money in his business by attending this workshop.
I love it. Love the personal stories. And especially, that goes back to our questions earlier. It's like full circle. It's focusing on that 20%, right? Maximizing time, doing the right thing, surrounding yourself with others that are at least, at your level, right? Or higher. And who can they introduce you to, and referrals. And I don't know. I just love all of this. And what's most important to me is what you think about Carlan being in this business 31 years and having the success that she has had and proving the concept over and over and over again. When I hear her personal stories, right, they're facts, right, Nick? Because I've seen a lot of this stuff from her and the stories and relationships. So anyway, it goes on and on and on. But I want to just end on this note here, right? I want to shift gears again. And I want to talk a little bit more about Pacific Life, right? And the two main products. If we can talk about that before we put a bow on this, Carlan, that would be great, because I know most of our audience is agents and we all want to grow. So what can you share when it comes to that?
Well, so our division at Pacific Life is primarily focused on the mass market. However, we do see plenty of large premium cases, and this is typically driven by the fact that we do have a $30 million retention. So we do see these larger premium cases. Typically, they're wealth transfer solution cases or business cases. About 70% of our business is term insurance, and 30% of this division's business is the GUL product. Over the last several years, actually, I've seen our GUL sales really steadily increase over and over again. And this may be a result that you're seeing carriers leave this space, but I do know our product is incredibly competitive. We our very, very attractive target premiums with this, target commissions. So it's just, if you haven't looked at it, please take a look at our our promise products, because you're missing out. We do offer low minimum face amounts, because again, remember, we are focused on the mass market and getting as many people insured as possible. So for our PL Promise term product, our minimum face amount is $50,000, and for our GUL, it's $25,000. We do offer, if you haven't heard about this, we offer a wonderful incentive for our conversions. And again, you do not have to be the original writing agent to qualify for this incentive. So if you convert a PL Promise term in the early term of the contract, you'll be paid 150% of your normal compensation. And I've seen this happen dramatically, where people were just doing policy reviews with a new client, and they found out the client had a term policy with us, had a conversation with the client, and come to find out the client really wanted a permanent solution. So this new agent came in, converted the business, and it was a $80,000 target case, just by asking the question, hey, did you really want term insurance? Why did you choose term insurance? Having the whole conversation with the client. And as I mentioned earlier, with our Pacific Life Healthy Rewards program, we are able to provide your clients with the best offer. Again, that 8% of the time, we're taking that standard offer and improving it either 1 to 3 rate classes up the board. So it's having a tremendous impact on our business, and it will have a tremendous impact on your business if you do it with us.
Oh, I love that. That's spot on. And now, from an IMO's perspective, right, I'm hearing it from all the agents out there. So I just want to share a couple things too, real fast. So as far as term insurance, right, and conversion, which is what you need to think about as an agent, and share this, of course, with the consumer, but they're always going to come up number 1, 2, or 3. And if they're number 2 or 3, I mean, it's literally pennies within the dollar of a difference from the number 1 carrier. So I would think about that, number 1. I would think about the GUL. And when you quote it, and you can spreadsheet this on our website, they're always going to come up number 1 or 2. And if the premium is so high, maybe on guaranteed to 100, right, and it's number 1 compared to the other products, but it is higher than term, you can dial down to age 95, to age 90, right? So that's another big option and something to talk about. The return of premium riders, I love. The living benefits, awesome. Another big deal, one of our top agents who's been doing this as long as me and Carlan, right, put together, sent me an email the other day. He's like, I just found something out I couldn't believe. Pacific Life is the only company that actually pays me a full commission on flat extras. And he was blown away. He said, I've never seen this before. And now all of a sudden, he was writing with like 5 or 6 carriers. He's like, I'm using Pac Life now for everything. And he was this just happened like a week ago. And he was so happy. And this is a big MDRT producer. So these are the things. Just be aware, right? And our marketing team can help you with any of these bullets, questions, anything that you need. Marketing material, we're here for you, right? And Pac Life is one of our core carriers. So they're close to our heart. And you already know, I don't have to tell you again, but Carlan is like part of our extended family. Carlan, I want to just say, thank you for not just today, but everything that you have brought to us, brought to the table, helped us with on a personal level, business, all the above. You really mean the world to me and my family. So I want to say thank you again for all the effort that you put in and just being you. So I
really appreciate it, Bill.
Of course. And any last words before we wrap up?
No, the main thing, if you take nothing from today, I would say run the 80-20 on your business. That one thing will have a dramatic impact because you will know, hey, these are my top customers. Without a doubt, these are the folks I need to be spending more and more time with. So if you don't do any of the things we suggested today, do that for yourself and your business.
Oh, I love it. I did the same thing. After I heard you talk about it at the expo, I wrote it down and I did the same exact thing. All right. So this was awesome. Some of my big takeaways that I wrote down personally, right? And we just learned about this and we went deep in the trenches was consistency, persistency, right? Positivity, which I know we knew these things before, but now they're front and center, right? And we know proof is in the pudding. This stuff works. So you got to get there every day, even if things aren't going so great on a Tuesday afternoon. Do whatever it takes to get you back in the zone, right? You got to smile. Your clients feel this stuff and ask the question, right? Worst thing that happens, you get a no, right? And no's eventually lead to one yes, and then boom, the rest is history, and you're in the best position ever, right? And you won't forget about episode 58. Okay, let's have a great day, great summer, great selling, and please reach out with any questions. You can reach out to Carlan through LinkedIn or our office, right? If you're contracted and you want to pick her brain a little bit, let us know. We'll make the intro. We'll go from there. So thank you to each and every one of you. Hope you walked away with some great nuggets as always. Thank you again.
Thank you for joining us for the Bill Levinson Experience. Please feel free to share this podcast with anyone you think would be interested. You may also visit levinsonandassociates.com and all of Bill Levinson's social media pages for more information.